Unpacking Mormonism and Other Religious Trauma is meant for educational purposes only. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Unpacking Mormonism and Other Religious Trauma. Mason, you are over there bobbing your head back and forth like, just another day in the recording studio. And what are your thoughts over there, head bobber? You look like you're sitting on my dashboard. What are those called, the little bobbleheads?
Oh, yeah, the little bobbleheads.
You know what? So our online store just opened at the daisygirlcommunications.com website. So if you want to head over there and buy some Daisy Girl merchandise or some Unpacking Mormonism merchandise or whatever, we've got some Raising Crazy merchandise. I have Raising Crazy stemless wine glasses and pint glasses, which that's my favorite item that we have in the merchandise store right now. Maybe we should get some Sarah and Mason bobbleheads for dashboards. That would be hilarious. And you could get one for Mason, like with your little head going back and forth. That's our introduction.
That would be more relevant if we were on video more often, maybe, but we're not. So you're just listening to our voice. You have no idea what's going on over here. I was just thinking that I'm glad to be back in the studio because it hasn't actually been that long, but the episode that you guys listened to last week was you with Alex. The episode that you're going to listen to next week is you with Dr. Bashan, right? With an N? Basha.
Dr. Basha. Emily Basha. Uh-huh. And you weren't here for either of those.
It feels like I've just been left out. And I'm excited to be back here again, even though I probably won't contribute all that much.
When in actuality, during the episode with Dr. Basha, when we were recording that, you were saving somebody's life. You were in the OR doing surgery. You were on call that day. And the one with Alex, you were at the doctor with one of our kiddos. And I don't remember. Oh, it was because I was at work. And it just happened. It just worked out better. You were at the doctor because it was your week off. And you had, I think it was Landon, you were at the dentist with Landon getting his cavities filled because he is just like you as a kid and hates brushing his teeth. So he has your teeth.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Someday that child will brush his teeth. Of all of our children, he's the one. He gets a cavity after every dental visit. None of the other kids do, but that one he's like, do not make me brush my teeth. After dental visits, maybe he should just stop going. Maybe that's the problem. That's what that is his logic, actually. He's like, I don't think I should go anymore. Good gracious,
Why do you keep making me go? This doesn't happen otherwise.
If you have a child like we have, we apologize for your pocketbook. We feel your pain. Alrighty. So anyway, we are talking today about conspiratorial thinking, and this is going to be a really heavy episode on psychoeducation. And really what we're doing is we're kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Alex and I talked about last week, and we're tying that into what Dr. Basha and I are talking about next week, which I already know what we talked about because we already recorded that.
One, so
and Mason's in the dark.
If I say something stupid that doesn't correlate, y'all just understand I haven't heard either one of those. So
and when you say something stupid, I'll make a comment and make fun of you to feel better about myself. And
alrighty then.
All right,
I was going to say sounds about normal just because it would be funny, but that's not true. So I didn't. I refrained.
Well, no, that's actually a good point because sometimes people don't pick up on our normal banter that when I do that, it's totally meant as a joke. And I'm going to say 98% of the time you recognize that I'm joking and we have a little look or a laugh and other people don't notice it. And the 2% of the time that you don't recognize that I'm joking or that I'm not actually joking, we fix it pretty quickly off the air. So anyway, alrighty, so let's jump right in.
I have just one more thing to say before we get started, but so do you, so go ahead. Mine's
no, I was going to do the Westbrook moment. Okay. So you go first.
The only thing that really needs to change right now is you have my Rubik's Cube, and I need it back.
There's your Rubik's
Thank you.
Cube.
Now
I apologize.
I can
I don't even know why it was over here.
I think it hasn't been moved back since you used it as part of the
for the webcam,
stand. Yeah,
probably.
so.
Yeah, his Rubik's Cube is my webcam stand for some of the podcasts I've been on for interviewing about Trauma Bonded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Westbrook moment. Here we go. So, Mason, did you want to talk about our Westbrook moment?
Get it started. Get it started. I'll just, join in if I feel like it's appropriate, if you're messing up the story or anything like that.
So, on Tuesday, which none of you guys really need to know.
It wouldn't matter for you.
It doesn't
Tuesday
matter for you what day we went.
Earlier this week.
Earlier this
How about
week.
that? Earlier this week.
We got the opportunity to go see Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was dying laughing through the entire thing. And Mason, you made a comment about, or I made a comment, I don't remember which one of us said it, but something about if we had gone to see that before you had left Mormonism, you would not have enjoyed that very much at all, but that you very much enjoyed it. Did you want to say something about that?
Let me clarify. I didn't say I wouldn't have enjoyed it very much at all. I simply said I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
Oh, I'm sorry for putting words in your mouth.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm here, to correct all your foibles about me.
So bad.
Oh, goodness gracious. So, yeah, there's a few things that, if you're kind of stuck in this, I'm going to use the word prudish place, but really I'm thinking more of like a scrupulous place, like a religious scrupulosity. Scrupulosity, that's the word, yeah. Then it would be harder to enjoy some of the jokes because they're meant to just be jokes, but they're also a little bit
crude.
Pointed and certainly crude. And I've never been the kind of person that really enjoys crude humor. And that's still the case. Like, it's not as scrupulous as it used to be, but I still don't really enjoy crude humor. We had another moment like that listening to the Book of Mormon stuff this morning, right? And so yeah, I loved it. I laughed. It was fun. I probably didn't enjoy all the jokes the same way that you did, and that's just simply the way that I am with that kind of humor. So I love to laugh. I love to be funny and help other people laugh, but it's never crude. Sometimes it's borderline, sexual or whatever, but it's never crude. And so, I probably didn't enjoy it quite as much as you did, but I loved it. We had a lot of fun. It was a terrific show. It even has some sensitive moments in it because it's a show about death, but even some sensitive moments that I really loved as well. And so, yeah, it was terrific. If you get the chance to go, it was terrific.
I love that they said it's a show about death, but really it's a show about feelings. It's a show about learning how to talk about your feelings and connecting over feelings that are hard and speaking about things that are hard rather than holding it all in. Yeah. So I absolutely loved it. Yes. And I enjoy crude humor, and so do all of my children.
Yes,
oh my goodness, so do all of my children. Poor Mason is... I agree with you, Mason. Prudish is probably not the correct term. I agree with you, that scrupulosity. And I really appreciated the fact that, you came with me, and this time around, you weren't so caught up in the, I think they could have gotten their point across without all of that type of thing, kind of that holier than thou attitude that you would have come away with. And so I really appreciated that, because it was an absolutely beautiful message delivered in a package that is humorous, which makes it palatable for people who struggle with vulnerability. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Fox Theater in St. Louis and Off-Broadway. Your production was amazing. Absolutely loved the actress that played Lydia. She was recently graduated, I believe it was from San Jose High School. So she is the same age as our son Hayden, and she was phenomenal, as was the guy that played
Beetlejuice.
Himself, I'm actually gonna, Mason, I want you to take the show bill, and I want to tag him in there, because I'd really like to just promote the key players in that show. They were phenomenal, did a great job, and just shout out to them. So thank you so much for doing such a beautiful job with the musical arts and the theater arts, and having just another outlet to teach people to feel. I think that that's what's beautiful about the arts, is that it is an amazing way for people to get in touch with their emotions that doesn't feel as threatening as the therapy room.
Yeah.
So brilliantly done.
Can I make one more comment too? You mentioned
No, stuff it down.
All right,
Be
never
quiet.
mind. Let's move on.
Go ahead, Nathan.
You mentioned that, and I forget now exactly the words that you said, but something about me being holier than thou. That's what it was. The holier than thou thing. And what I wanted to mention was that at the time, a few years ago when I was kind of stuck in that place, I didn't feel holier than thou.
But you felt righteous.
And not even that. It wasn't like even a judgment about other people. It was just, I don't want to do that. I don't like it. But I can see now on the other side how it still comes off a little bit like holier than thou. And the reason I bring that up is because I wasn't aware. And sometimes you can't see, and I think this actually ties a little bit into the topic we're going to have today. Unless you can see things from a different perspective, oftentimes you'll miss the fact. In this case, I'll miss the fact that I had no desire to come off as holier than thou.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I can't still. And so sometimes you need to be able to step away, or people need to be able to tell you, hey, look, you're coming off this way, and for us to step back and go, well, that's not what I mean, but you're right. I can see that, or whatever. And so I appreciate the fact that you brought that up, because not what I'm trying to do, but it doesn't change the fact it is what I did sometimes.
Right. Well, and this is like that gold nugget squirrel moment, because this has nothing to do with conspiratorial thinking. But I mean, I'm going to close with this, unless, of course, you have something else brilliant that you want to add in.
It depends on what brilliance you say right now.
But one of the things that's really interesting is you've got a theme going on right now on your Facebook account about a talk with Dallin H. Oaks and the LGBT community, and, what would it feel like if we flipped the bill and said this? And one of the commenters said, this is a stupid argument because Dallin H. Oaks never said these things about the LGBT population. And really, that's really ignorant. You're correct. Dallin H. Oaks never came out and overtly said those things. But if you're not willing to see it from the other side of how people are interpreting Dallin H. Oaks' words and acting on them as a person in that, like Dallin H. Oaks is a person of authority, and his words have more meaning than other people's, especially when he's quote unquote speaking for God. And this is the impact those words are having on his followers.
Yeah.
It is significant, and it does have merit. And so we've got to be aware. And the only way to truly understand the impact of what's being said is to step out of your own worldview, practice some empathy, and see it from other perspectives. And the issue is that when you're stuck in that Mormon bubble, when we talk about, or any bubble, we could call it the Republican bubble, the Democrat bubble,
any bubble. This is
any
not
bubble.
Significant. Yeah,
right. This is not
just Mormonism.
Exclusive to Mormonism.
Yes.
But when you're stuck in the bubble where I can't see it from somebody else's perspective, you're really limiting your ability to practice empathy. And you're limiting your opportunity to grow and understand. You get stuck in this place of defensiveness that stops growth.
Yeah.
So
the same thing happened with the comment from Nelson about don't trust.
Right.
Never take advice from people that don't believe.
Right.
And a lot of believers are like, well, that's not what he meant. Okay, fine. I'm not here to argue what he meant, because there's no way I can figure that out. What I am trying to do is help you see that from the perspective of a lot of people, what he said was very exclusive, like get those people out of your life.
Right.
And I don't think that is what he meant, but it is what he said, and it hurt a lot of people.
Right.
And it will lead to a hurt for a lot of people.
Absolutely goes into our topic today of conspiratorial thinking, although it goes out of order. So I'm going to start with my number 4 point. So we are doing a teeny tiny mini series on conspiratorial thinking and radical thinking. Our intent today is psychoeducation and to explain the anatomy of conspiratorial thinking,
right,
and to kind of explain what are the characteristics of conspiracy thinking. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about conspiracy theories is that some of them come true. You know, there is a
they
such.
They can't all be wrong, right?
They can't all be wrong. And there is a such thing as conspiracies. Like there are people in positions of power or, well, some people not in as high power as we would like to think where there are conspiracies. And so it's really difficult because when people are practicing conspiracies, there's a lot of secretism around him. And so it's, you know, it's hard because if you know, a little piece, if it's like, ooh, that part of my conspiracy theory was true, therefore all of it is true. Now we're stuck in this cognitive bias loop that stops us from being able to step out of our circular reasoning and back into reality-based thinking to be objective, because the reality is that no conspiracy theory is 100% true. And no, you know, there's probably some merit to all conspiracy theories, to be completely honest. You know, there's some things that we probably need to look at and go, there could be some concern here. And I'm not going to say all, but maybe most.
Right, well, they don't get invented out of nothing.
Right, they don't get invented out of nothing. There are some
come from somewhere.
Right, there are some flags there. And so we really need to be in the gray zone, which is probably the safest place to be, is somewhere in the gray zone. And so, Mason, when you're talking about what Nelson said on the, what is the direct quote? I can't even remember the direct quote now, but.
I can find it real quick if you want me to.
Yeah, if you could. It is go ahead and put your Rubik's Cube down, Mr. Puzzle Solver over there.
Well, you didn't have to call me out like that. Gosh.
Put your Rubik's Cube down and look for it. It is the black and white thinking. And one of the challenges that we find in high demand religions and high demand organizations is the us versus them, the right versus wrong, good versus evil, black and white thinking, also known as polarized thinking.
Right.
This is a characteristic of conspiracy theorists. It is a characteristic. It is part of the anatomy of radical thinking, conspiracy thinking, cult-like thinking. And so when you say, what is the direct quote, Mason?
The quote here is, never take counsel of those who don't believe.
Never. The issue is the never. Never take counsel from people who do not believe. That is the sentence. Now, yes, a sentence or two before that, he said something about make sure that you are seeking advice from people you can trust. But then he undoes that statement with the never word, that all-inclusive or all-inclusive, declusive. What's the word I'm looking for?
All-inclusive.
All-inclusive.
Yep.
Well, because he's exclusive, all exclusive. So we've got all inclusive, all exclusive, whatever. Word that puts us in that us versus them, and any of the quantifiers beforehand are now null and void.
Right. Because
he says because in that never take counsel from a non-believer, he's basically saying you can't trust a non-believer, and that is what is divisive. That's what makes this black and white, us versus them, right versus wrong, good versus evil. And this is why those high demand organizations breed conspiratorial thinkers.
Yeah. And implicit in that message is that you cannot trust anyone that doesn't believe the way that we do. But also implicit in that message is you absolutely can trust
people that
do believe the way that you do.
Correct.
And that's of course ignorant, because none of us knows everything about everything, and you lose lots of valuable perspectives when you exclude yourself from, basically in this case, exclude yourself from everybody that doesn't believe the way you do. you just lose
Right.
a lot.
But see, that's also one of the characteristics that opens up your organization to perpetrators.
Right.
And pedophilia, because it's, I can't trust people on the outside. And so your perpetrators, your pedophiles, your people, so like Mormons are, I know that Mormons are very, what is it? It's the extortion. Is it extortion, Mason? Is that the crime I'm thinking of? No, Ponzi schemes. That's what it is.
Ponzi schemes,
It's the Ponzi schemes. Like Mormons are incredibly vulnerable to Ponzi schemes and multi-level marketing companies and child sex crimes.
Right.
It is everywhere in Mormonism. Why? Well, because perpetrators of those crimes know that there is this
They know the vulnerable population, right?
trusting nature of, if I pretend to believe like you trust me without running me through the normal, pros and cons.
God called you to be the Elders Quorum president, right?
Therefore, you must be good.
God called you to be a bishop, for crying out loud, right? God wouldn't do that if he didn't trust you. So I trust you, and I trust you implicitly, and I trust you quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So some of the other characteristics that we want to talk about today, so what I'm calling the anatomy of conspiratorial thinking, is, and the first one I have on here is that the individual is going to have what Dr. Bashaw calls a fragile ego. And, when we talk about fragile ego, that's kind of a clinical term. It's clinical vernacular. And so I really want to break that down today in prep for next week's talk, and we break it down a little bit next in what you're going to hear next week.
Right.
But the reason I'm recording this today is because I really want to make sure that our listeners have a solid understanding of what it means to have a fragile ego.
Good.
It means to have a deep sense of insecurity in oneself. It means that you need to be right. It means I'm not comfortable being wrong. It also means that not only are you not comfortable being wrong, but that you're afraid of it. You can buy Trauma Bonded, a true story of navigating attachments forged in complex PTSD, by me, anywhere books are sold, including Audible.
The mighty and resilient Merrimack River, carving through the communities of our great region. My name is Linda Lorden, proud president of Merrimack County Savings Bank, and like the river that serves as our namesake, we're a constant yet ever-changing presence. Because to us, it's bigger than banking. It's about powering communities and putting people first. It's about knowing where you came from and where you're going. That's Merrimack style. Visit us at themerrimack.com.
It means that there is usually a lack of empathy, meaning that you have a very impaired ability to see things from somebody else's experience. And the reason for that is usually because there's so much fear and insecurity in yourself that you're not really in touch with how you feel, because there's so much insecurity that you can't really get in touch with yourself. But really what we're talking about when we talk about a fragile ego is, I'm not able to manage being seen vulnerably in any way. And it's really important to understand that, because if I'm not able to be vulnerable in any way, in any environment, then I am going to go to extreme efforts to be right, to quote unquote know things, to be in a position of I must be special and superior, and I'm going to act in a way that nobody can cut me down.
Right. Because that's attached to that's attached to my value, right?
Correct.
If I attach being right to my internal value, then being wrong is a threat to who I am.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is where somebody who has a fragile ego is where I am going to fight to the death my previous held belief despite any data placed in front of me. And
Right.
I am going to hold on to circular reasoning and cognitive bias to my death.
Every hill is the hill you die on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I cannot accept being wrong. Usually these individuals have some significant trauma in their life. And one of the things that's very interesting is that oftentimes these individuals struggle with some level of being on the narcissistic personality disordered spectrum. One of the things that is very interesting about individuals on the narcissistic personality disorder spectrum is that they are highly insecure individuals. Narcissistic personality disordered individuals have a very fragile ego, and that is why they go to such extremes to make everybody else look crazy so that they are not perceived as crazy. They have to be the smartest in the room, the expert in the room. They are always right. They are the best, so on and so forth. And of course, that's a spectrum. So you see people more extreme on that spectrum than otherwise. But Mason, you and I had prepared a couple of quotes, like we did some research and we had prepared some quotes. And I think that right now is a really good time to kind of review some of those before we get into the next piece of what is the anatomy of conspiratorial thinking.
Okay.
So
Did
go ahead.
you have one in mind?
Nope, just
okay.
go through
I'll just
them
start
and
from
we'll
the top.
Yep,
Okay.
just start from the top and we'll break them down.
So the links for this research is in the show notes. Please go to it and read it all because we're just catching snippets of the things that meant something to me.
Us.
Well, the ones I wrote down were the ones that meant something to me, and then of course I shared them with you, and so they were significant.
Right.
But when I wrote them down, it was just the stuff that struck me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The researchers found that overall, people were motivated to believe in conspiracy theories by a need to understand and feel safe in their environment and a need to feel like the community they identify with is superior to others.
Right. And so let's talk a little bit about Mormonism, because again, our experiential expertise. So in Mormonism, from the time that we are itty bitty, we are told that we have the whole truth, religiously speaking, that we are the only religion that has the whole truth, and that we are on a special mission from God to share that with everybody, and that we will have the most joy in heaven by how many people we bring to that truth.
Sure.
And so we are special. In a way, we are superior. But then on the next hand, we're not superior. But then we're also not, there's this culture of my vulnerabilities cannot be seen. And it's like the Book of Mormon Broadway song, Turn It Off,
Right.
which is I have these feelings, turn it off. We don't focus on that. We're going to focus on the good, because there's the scriptures of anger is and contention are from Satan. Happiness and joy is from God. If I feel happy and good, that means I'm doing things right. If I feel angry or bad, that means Satan is in control of my life.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is that you end up with this need to always be in the comfort zone, emotionally speaking, and I'm special. Which means that when I have these natural feelings of discomfort, something's wrong with me, I'm under the influence of Satan, I can't feel this way, something is bad. And that is part of what contributes to developing this very fragile ego. Now, this is, again, not exclusive to Mormonism. This happens in multiple high demand organizations that are psychologically damaging, that build your worth based on black and white polarized thinking and psychologically damaging ideologies.
Right. My mind actually immediately went to surgeons. It's almost cliche about how much surgeons can be controlling or things like that. And in my experience, that's not the case. And I work with surgeons every single day. So it's certainly not a diss on surgeons at all. But the environment kind of can create this idea of superiority. The surgeon walks in the room, or anesthesia walks in the room. Hey, I control this room. If there's an emergency in the OR, by the way, they don't look to the surgeon. They look at anesthesia, because anesthesia is the one that's actually taking care of the patient so that the surgeon can fix the problem. So it can breed this idea of superiority and even narcissism or things like that. And so you can kind of see that sort of thing as well.
Right. Well, and the second half of that quote is that the individual needs to feel safe in their environment.
Right.
And that is
right.
because I know something you don't know. I have this knowledge. Because remember, and I think we talked about this before. We definitely talked about it last week with Alex. Our brain needs to feel safe. It craves knowledge, and it will jump to the first solution that makes sense to the brain, and it will deem that first thing that makes sense to us as truth, with or without data. It takes a very mature person to go, I wonder if this first conclusion is actually right. It makes sense to me because the brain wants it to make sense to me. Okay,
Right.
Our brain wants the fastest, not what is accurate. We have to actually be the ones that go, okay, that was the fastest first response. I feel better now that I feel calm. Let's test that first theory and then shift our expectations as we get more data. That's what the scientific mind is trying to achieve.
Right. But you can't do that if you don't deal with the information.
And recognize that in the heat of the moment, it's normal for you not to get to the most accurate conclusion first because the amygdala is in the way.
Right.
So it is normal for you to maybe come up with a not completely accurate solution first, give yourself some time, and with more time and experience, you get to the best accurate conclusion. And with more time and experience, you get to better conclusions faster as you move forward. That's just part of growing up. This is why your teenagers are so stupid. I love them, but they are. Not because they're stupid, but because they lack the experience to have those best solutions or those more accurate solutions come up first.
They're invulnerable, right?
Right. I mean, if you're wondering how stupid teenagers are, go watch that 70s show or that 90s show. Some of the things on there that these teenagers come up with, the reason it's so funny is because we've all been there going, wait, really? Yeah, I was there. That's funny. Yeah, it happens,
well,
right?
And so I said, you have to be able to logically think through there. And I've only heard these Book of Mormon songs today. But they're fresh, fresh on my brain.
Right. Well, and let me explain this. This is because I'm like, hey, Mason, we're going to go see the Book of Mormon off Broadway in April. We should probably listen to the songs because it's easier for us to follow the play when we watch it. And hey, some of it's pretty I told Mason, I was like, hey, Mace, some of it's pretty crass. So just so you're prepared.
So there's one missionary's talking about, his best friend growing up and they were close as could be. And then one day he had kind of some sexual feelings toward him. And he's like, step back, turn that off. And fine, right? But if you teach as an organization fear of an idea or a thought or a situation instead of investigation of a situation, he might find that didn't mean anything at all. It just means that I have a good friend that I'm close to. Or he might find, that means I'm gay, whichever place that goes. But if you're afraid to investigate it, you shut it down, then your brain kind of settles on, okay, well, we're afraid of these things. We're not going to address this at all. And we have to be curious with our brains to go, okay, why did I go there?
Right.
Was that really the best thing? Or was it just the safest thing at the time? Or was it the first solution that was available or whatever?
Right. Which is why one of the primary characteristics of somebody caught in a conspiratorial thinking pattern is fear. Fear and mistrust are huge components.
Right.
And so it's actually, and that's, that quote that you gave further down in the article, it says that even though many conspiracy theories seem to provide clarity or a supposed secret truth about confusing events, a need for closure or a sense of control were not the strongest motivators to endorse conspiracy theories. Instead, the researchers found some evidence that people were more likely to believe in general conspiracy theories about how the world works, meaning that it's our brain's need to solve the problem in a way that makes it make sense than it is to feel superior. And it's, if this makes sense to me, I can relax about it.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of in this next quote on here too.
Right.
If you're
go ahead. I'm ready for your
okay.
next quote.
So the researchers also found that people with certain personality traits, such as a sense of antagonism toward others and high levels of paranoia, were more prone to believe conspiracy theories. Those who strongly believed in conspiracy theories were also more likely to be insecure, paranoid, emotionally volatile, impulsive, suspicious, withdrawn, manipulative, egocentric, and eccentric.
Yep.
And I think the next one kind of goes into that as well, but let's talk about what that was. Or do you want me to read the next one as well?
Well, no, because is it the big five? Because
I don't
so
know.
I'm going to go a little bit. So the big
Okay.
5 personality traits that prevent conspiratorial thinking are extroversion, agreeableness, openness, conscientiousness, and neuroticism. Had a much weaker relationship with conspiratorial thinking.
Okay.
So one of the things that this is talking about, or that I wanted to kind of tie into these high demand organizations, is that high demand organizations are really good at making you mistrust anything on the outside of their organization. So like in Mormonism, again, talking about our experiential expertise, the prophets are, you can't trust your governments. You can't trust anybody who doesn't believe like us. The only people you can trust implicitly are the top 15. That's your prophet, his 2 counselors, and the 12 apostles. Right. Anybody outside of that, anybody who disagrees with what we say, you shouldn't trust. And so what you're doing from the time people are really little is you're building an attitude of mistrust of outside authority, but you're not creating an attitude of curiosity.
Right.
Whereas what you really want is, I think it's this way, but I want to teach you to question. I want to teach you how to look at the data. I want to teach you how to research things.
Right.
It's been said, it's almost cliche, that the religion of our day is science. And I think that, I'm really proud of that, because one of the things I love about science is that science allows you to change your opinion in the face of new experiences and new data.
And validates the opinions that it puts forth by some sort of...
it's tested and reproducible. That's what I'm looking for. Reproducible results. Like, hey, when I do this, every time I do this, this is the result that we get. So it's reproducible. Right. And so does pretty much everybody else that does it.
Right.
In the same way
you follow the
that
rules that I wrote down here, it's going to happen. Yeah.
Right. And the thing with science, it's not like the Book of Mormon's circular reasoning, which is, oh, you didn't get the strong, warm, fuzzy feeling in your chest. Well, that's because you did it wrong.
Right. Well, and they blame that on the most pervasive, present, manipulative being that has ever existed, which is Satan, right? Satan is the most powerful being on this earth in reality when it comes to Christianity, because he can do so much. And if you're not careful, he'll suck you into his web, and you're stuck. And you may not even know that you're stuck, right? So you have the best possible scapegoat to support what you want people to do. Because you can blame him for anything.
I think that's really important, because in conspiracy theories, there's usually a scapegoat somewhere.
Sure.
So let's identify who is the scapegoat. Because when we're looking at scapegoats, that means that somebody's not taking responsibility somewhere along the lines. And again, when there's narcissistic personality disorder, there's usually a scapegoat. Who's the scapegoat? Let's identify who the scapegoat is. Because if you're finding that somebody has a scapegoat, that's a red flag.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the scapegoat is always the United States government is lying to me, well, has the United States government lied to us before? Hell yes. Yes, they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have they lied about everything? Of course not. So let's get into that gray zone. All right. Go ahead, Mason.
All right. Next quote here. Some evidence suggests a link between personality and conspiracy theories. Shauna Bowes, a clinical psychology doctoral student at Emory University, and her colleagues surveyed nearly 2,000 people and found that those lower on agreeableness, conscientiousness, and humility were more likely to embrace both general conspiracy theories, like the government is hiding something from us, and concrete ones, like the Apollo moon landings were fake. People with pathological personality scores, such as high grandiosity or very low self-esteem, were even more likely to support conspiratorial narratives.
Okay. So are you guys seeing the pattern here?
Right.
Are you seeing that? What Dr. Bashaw next week is going to be talking quite a bit about as a fragile ego. Again, deep levels of insecurity, a need to be right, a fear of being wrong, black and white thinking, us versus them, right versus wrong, good versus evil, mistrust in authority, lack of empathy, a need to know, a need to belong to a small group of people that are better than or have the secret knowledge. We're the special ones that know.
Right. My thought being that in the case of Mormonism, if you are converted to this idea that the truth lives here, I think one of the underlying messages is also then that out there is not the truth. Even though there's a lot of truth out there, and some leaders will talk about all the truth that is also out there, but implicit is the truth is here, the truth is not there. Mm-hmm. You might be able to glean some stuff, but the truth is not there, which means you have to question all of that. But why? Why do I need to question all of that if I know right here is the truth? So I'm just going to hang on to this right here because this is the truth, and I'm not going to worry very much about that.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Well, and humans have a deep need to be unique. We all want to be different in our own special way.
We don't want to be forgotten when we die.
Correct.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But humans, unfortunately, are not super unique. We're very predictable creatures. And
Breaking my heart here.
I know. There's this, right? There's this level of... One of the things that I find in my clinic is that as we learn to be able to accept things as they are, as we learn how to let go of the things that we can't control, we become much happier. We become less anxious, less depressed. We're able to enjoy life more. It's a really unique thing, but learning how to do that it's a challenge.
Sure.
And one of the things that comes with the conspiratorial thinking is I have unique knowledge that nobody else has. I'm going to share it. And when nobody listens to me, well, that's because they're just too stupid. And I'm a victim because, it validates. Yeah. It's that persecution complex. And we see that persecution complex again in Mormonism because of our history of, Joseph Smith was the innocent victim who never did anything wrong.
Right.
and look at how badly he was persecuted. Hey, we're ignoring the fact that he was marrying and sleeping with minors, that he was trying, he was soliciting married women and minors for sex. He was destroying printing presses. He was, there is committing financial fraud. We're going to ignore all of that and claim he was an innocent victim and that all of these mobs were persecuting Mormons for no reason. That's called a persecution complex. You're going to see that same type of thing in that conspiratorial thinking of, well, you don't believe me, you're persecuting me.
Right.
You're just an idiot.
Right.
But on the flip side, those that don't believe the conspiracy theories, we kind of do the same thing. We're kind of like, you're just an idiot. I can't believe you believe that. Are you fucking kidding me? Like so it goes both ways. So we've got to be really careful as we talk to these individuals. Telling them that they're dumb or telling them that they're wrong isn't helpful. And as I say that, I'm here to tell you that I have told Mason's conspiracy theory thinking brothers many times that their ideas are wrong. So just want to make sure.
Dumb.
Or dumb. I don't think I've ever said that they're dumb. I've just told them in stronger than helpful language that I disagree with them in ways that have not been helpful when I've known better. So I definitely want to put that out there.
Right. Well, and there's a difference between saying your ideas are wrong and I don't believe that your ideas are right. One is certainly a softer thing than the other. One requires you to agree with me or you're dumb, and one doesn't, right? If I say, no, your idea is stupid, I've automatically told you I think that you're dumb because you believe this, even though I didn't say those words. And so certainly we have to be careful about how we address those things because that's hopefully not what we're trying to say.
Right. So I think that one of the things that's really important here, this is quoted in the Current Directions in Psychological Sciences, Volume 26, Number 6, 2017. Dr. Douglas says people turn to conspiracy theories when important psychological needs aren't being met. Her research shows that such narratives can fulfill our need for certainty and security when events seem random and for social belonging. And so I think that one of the things that it's really important for us to understand about people who are trapped in conspiratorial thinking patterns is that they're deeply wounded and they're hurting. But they're also like that hurt animal stuck in the corner that they're going to be biting at anybody that's trying to lash out. And the solution isn't to lash out at them.
Right, lash back.
Right. Yeah. It just doesn't help for them to be lashed back at. We've been fairly silent on what's going on with like Tim Ballard right now. Mostly because the man is being fairly persecuted and criticized in the media, and understandably so.
Sure, if the allegations are correct. Then,
right, if the allegations are accurate.
To sneer at.
Right, and after the success of Sound of Freedom, which was definitely sensationalized, definitely not the way that most human trafficking occurs, definitely not the way that I have seen most human trafficking occur.
Right, or the way that we combat it, yeah.
And it's definitely not the most effective way to combat it at all. Definitely some unethical practices being, what I would definitely consider unethical practices being advertised and marketed, utilized, marketed. So yes, I am definitely in line with that movie is somewhat problematic, but also helpful in the way of raising awareness. Like I'm in the gray zone on it. Right. It calls attention to a huge problem, but in a very exaggerated way with some huge ethical problems.
Right.
I've actually had some pretty harsh discussions with one of your brothers on this because your brother keeps, anytime anything comes up, he's like, what about human trafficking? And I finally called him out and I was like, so what are you actually doing about human trafficking other than posting all this shit on Facebook about it? Because let me tell you what I've actually done for human trafficking and how many direct victims I've worked with.
Right.
Who do it, and this is not the norm, and whatnot. But I've been fairly silent because the way that we're talking about and addressing the Tim Ballard issues are not helpful to solving the problem.
Right. And he's not. I mean, Hollywood has kind of made him the poster boy for this fight, but the reality is he's not. There's lots of people out there who are not visible, who are doing so much work for that.
But
so
I do want to point out that if you're following that story and you're looking at what is the anatomy of conspiratorial thinking and that narcissistic personality thing, we're looking at where's the scapegoat. Right now, the media is using Tim Ballard as the scapegoat.
Right.
But before that, who was the scapegoat? Because who was Tim Ballard's scapegoat? And now we're looking at these women who are coming forward as his victims, and we're looking at Tim Ballard, who was that, there's some funky statements out there that he's claimed that he was in some ways a savior, like somewhat like ushering in the next Jesus Christ, or that there's some pretty sensationalized stories, and I don't really want to go in that, but that need to be right, that I'm kind of the hero here of the story, that need to be right, that mistrust in authority. Like if you look at the OUR, their entire organization is built on the mistrust of authority, and this lack of empathy. If you look like what happens to their victims, or I'm sorry, what happens to the victims after they've been rescued, there's definitely some problems there. Right. But then I also want to look at people like, if we look at the Lafferty brothers in Mormonism, if we look at the QAnon organizations, what are we seeing? What are the similarities that you are seeing as we talk about this fragility of ego? What are you seeing? What are you able to identify? And then how do you combat that?
Right.
How can you validate the emotional experience and that level of insecurity without challenging the thinking, but also without agreeing with it? And that's really where this gets difficult. This is where you start to use I can understand how that can be concerning for you. I'm not sure how I think or feel about this. This is something I would need to do more research about before I can form an opinion. I appreciate you trusting me with this, and maintaining healthy friendships. Yeah. This is where, when you look at things like what President Nelson said in his conference talk of, never trust the
non-believer.
Thank you, Mason. I almost said never trust the believer. Whoops. As the ex-Mormon community is responding to that, myself included, this is a hurtful statement for those of us on the non-believing side now, because we're like, hello, that's like what happened? Because most of my opinions haven't changed. Really, the only opinion that's changed, like for me, when I look at my professional opinions really haven't changed pre me leaving the church and post me leaving the church. Really, the only opinions that have changed are my belief systems about Joseph Smith and the afterlife. I still believe in being honest. I still believe in being kind. I still believe in being generous.
But you drink coffee now, so none of that
drink
matters.
Coffee. I drink alcohol. I go to Beetlejuice. I'm going to go see the Book of Mormon Broadway show here soon, and I drop the F-bomb more openly.
Well, there's a specific reason I brought up coffee. Coffee is the scapegoat. When you talk about when you talk with Mormons who are looking at you going, yeah, well, your lifestyle is completely different. Well, look at the fact that you drink alcohol. Look at the fact that you drink coffee. Mm-hmm. They ignore the things like, I'm still honest. I'm still kind. I'm still Christian. I'm still behaving as a Christian. All of these things, those get ignored, and the scapegoats are coffee, which frankly doesn't matter to anyone except for Mormons. For the most part. I shouldn't say anyone. There's other religions there that care about those things
Watch
too.
those Mormon all-inclusives baby.
But for the most part, it doesn't matter to most people, only Mormonisms.
Right.
Alcohol, it really only matters to
people who are
Mormons,
struggling with an addiction to
right,
it.
or people that are struggling with it, right? So, but those become the scapegoat. We can't talk about the person that you are. We can only talk about the things that you're not doing in conformity with Mormonism.
Right. So my question or my challenge to those who are listening is, how can we respond to the statement that Nelson made in a more constructive way? And what I would challenge you to say is something more along the lines of, I get why it might be a little bit scary to take advice from somebody who doesn't believe the same way as you. I would challenge you to at least listen to what I have to say and then run it through your filter of what works for me and what doesn't work for me. You need to acknowledge their fear, because if you're not acknowledging the emotion first, their brain will close off, because their brain has been trained to close off, just like your brain has been trained to say, hey, I still have a voice and my voice is still valid. We will get nowhere if they say, well, it makes sense that I shouldn't listen to you because you're going to take me away from the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
And you say I'm still a valid person. We get nowhere. And I am here to say, go to my personal Facebook page and look at how I've fucked it up, because I have. Over the last couple of weeks, my amygdala has made me post some really stupid shit. And I'm not taking it down because I want you to be able to see it. So go there and look at it. There's some stupid shit there. I've not done this perfectly, but now that I've got some time and space, I'm extending myself the same challenge, which is, it makes sense to me why it might be hard. Maybe you don't want to take counsel from me on religious matters, but when it comes to things of my profession, I want you to know that my opinion hasn't changed. And I would say, hey, maybe run some of my thoughts or ideas through your filter to determine what works and what doesn't, because I would really hate for Nelson's counsel to come between our very valuable relationship.
Yeah.
The guy was probably on painkillers, by the way, but I'll keep that part.
Can I read something that I responded to a friend?
No,
a friend had asked a
absolutely
question
not.
on Facebook. And
Of
then
course.
she asked me a question with a direct message. So this was not put on Facebook.
And then let's go ahead and close out with that. So go ahead and read that and then close us out with your final thoughts, Mace.
So I say to her, you say you wouldn't talk to your close friends about getting baptized. That's one of the things that she said. I say, why not? Those friends are likely to share perspectives you haven't thought of. Their life experience is different than yours. After that, whether you decide to get baptized or not, you've likely made a more informed decision. Again, I ask, why not talk to people outside of the church about their impressions or thoughts? Will it lead you away? Maybe, but it would seem that would only happen if the things they have to say have merit. If it has merit, why are we avoiding it? If it has merit, what are we afraid of? If it doesn't have merit, wouldn't that just make us better informed? Even if it is just quote-unquote Satan at work trying to deceive, isn't it always better to be well informed of the issues? And that's kind of the thought that I have there in response to this Nelson idea. Never take counsel from non-believers seems like you're just shutting down real conversation, because I'm going to go to my bishop, for instance. Well, my bishop and I already believe the same things. This isn't a change of perspective, really. Not really. And so if I go to someone who doesn't believe and I say, why do you think I shouldn't get baptized? And they bring up some things that I hadn't thought about, it gives me the chance to actually think. It gives me that chance to actually look at things. You know, it's not the thought stopping. It's not the, I'm not talking about that. We're not going there.
Right.
Why not go there? Because you're going to be better informed at the end of the conversation. Whether or not you've changed your mind doesn't matter. You're going to be better informed.
Right. You're using the quote unquote influence of Satan
right.
as a thought-stopping
Right.
mechanism.
Right.
I love that response, Mason. Very well done.
So, you want me to close out, but I am not the expert here on. Let me just close out by reading the last quote here that you kind of talked about already. But the last one says, dispelling conspiracy theories is a major challenge, partly because their adherents tend to distrust authority and believe that powerful people or groups are corrupt. If we, as the people on the outside of whatever that theory is, that high-demand religion, that high-demand group is, if we can recognize we're up against a wall sometimes because they don't trust. They trust what they think they know. They don't trust anything else. It hopefully will give us more compassion, more empathy towards them rather than just the anger that seems to be involved. You're telling me that there's too much chlorine in the water. That kind of thing can just make us very angry. Instead, if we can just find compassion, if we can find empathy for those people, we can recognize that they're coming from a different place than we thought they were. And that can help us to just be kind, to just be the people that most of us really want to be. Just be kind. Just be compassionate for those people. And hopefully they'll do the same thing for me when I'm stuck in those situations, because I don't see everything. And so my challenge to you is to be able to see people from a different lens, be empathetic, be compassionate, be kind, because if you can do that, there's going to come a time where they're going to be able to do the same thing for you.
Sounds like you're saying do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Whether it comes from Jesus and you believe in Jesus as who Christianity believes in Jesus or not, it's a very good concept.
Love it.
Yeah. So thank you guys for being here. We love you and look forward to next week, because that is where we'll go dig into this a little bit more. Adios.
Unpacking Mormonism and Other Religious Trauma is hosted by Sarah and Mason Westbrook, produced by Daisy Girl Communications, LLC, and Alex Vidalis. Please join our community on Facebook. Music provided by Musa and John Worthy Music. Watch those Mormon all-inclusives there, baby.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.